Greetings and welcome to the Transform Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Anastasio. This is Thursday, July 21st, 2022, and welcome to episode 76 of our podcast. And, guys, I just want to start off, you probably can tell by listening to me, there's something off with my voice. The reason there's something off with my voice is because I believe I have fallen ill, most likely to COVID, if I had to gamble on it. So 99.9% chance this will be the only episode that we publish this week. That means you'll get episode 76 this week. Probably just do one next week, 77, and that gets us back on track for 2 a week, starting with the even-numbered episode 78, the first week in August. That would be the week of August 1st. So that's the most likely schedule, guys. I know we've really been in a good groove with 2 a week. I think we only deviated from that one time back in last September, I think, was the only time we did that. So or somewhere around that time frame. Maybe it was March of this year. Thinking back to some travel that I was doing. But anyway, so sorry about that, guys. Hate messing with the schedule. The OCD in me does not like it. But I got to keep this episode short just to kind of lay off the voice a little bit. So I'm going to try to do this quickly, guys. Quick plug for last week, episode 74, Importance of Speed in Business. Came out on July 13th. That was really an in-depth kind of step-by-step analysis, if you will, of an article that appeared on GaryVaynerchuk.com on their blog several years ago, but very resonant for me, and so I just kind of wanted to share it with you guys, see if it resonated with you. Episode 75, which came out on Friday the 15th, that was the Twitter Advanced Search episode. We talked about the handiness, if you will, of the Twitter Advanced Search function, and how you can really use that to enter and affect conversations in your space, in your industry, in your service line of work, whatever the case may be. Very, very powerful tool. So check those out if you guys get a chance. Like I said, this week we'll only be doing today's episode 76, and this episode actually kind of accidentally, I happened to be watching one of Gary's speeches in Singapore from, I believe it was May 2019. I think it was in the spring of 2019. It was definitely 2019. I think it was the spring. I went to Singapore for a talk about just his usual message about creating content, kind of fearlessly putting out your message, doing what you love. I mean, typical Gary themes if you follow him. Really great stuff. I mean, not trying to minimize it. But one thing kind of jumped out at me a little bit because it touched on something I've talked about a lot on this podcast in terms of volume, in terms of creating lots and lots of volume. And I think the last time that I really went into volume, I'm trying to see. Yeah, I think it was episode 56 with the very aptly named title, More Content, More Content, More Content. That came out on May 4th earlier this year. So I think that was the last time I really dove deeply into that subject. But it touched me in a way, guys, because Gary kind of, discussed another reason why you want to create lots of content that was a little bit more self-serving than anything I've mentioned before. I think every time I've brought up lots of content, it's obviously everything's self-serving in terms of getting you more business, but it was more about, reaching the customer and filling up the vast space known as the internet and just all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, just very functional types of things. But one of the audience members had asked him about being torn between, she had a YouTube channel, a fairly successful one. I think she said she had like 1.5 million subscribers or something like that. So it was a good, vibrant YouTube channel. But her question was basically something to the effect of, how do I know whether to make content that I want to make, like that's serving something I want to say, or content that my audience wants to hear, something they're searching for, something that they're like technically seeking on YouTube. And it was really interesting because Gary basically answered her with this concept of volume, volume, volume. But what he basically was saying was that by producing lots of volume, by just cranking out, the mill, cranking the mill and getting the content out there, you get to do both. Because in an oddly inverse way, you think, well, producing a lot of content is a lot of pressure, right? Well, number one, if you follow his mantra of document, don't create, it's actually not as much pressure because you just document what you're doing already. You don't sit there and create brand new ideas every day, right? So that's going to help you with the pressure aspect. But the other interesting thing about pressure is that as you crank more content out, you alleviate pressure because now you get to do and say just about anything you want because the volume will correct things over time. Or the volume, maybe correct isn't the right word, the volume will lead you where you need to go over time. It will show you what's optimal and what's not. And even then, even if you see, well, it's more optimal for me to make content that's targeted towards specific search keywords coming in from my audience, you can still make content for yourself because you're producing so much of it. One of the funny examples that Gary gave during the talk was he basically said that at that time, whatever it was, spring of 2019, he'd been producing a lot of content that was very similar in nature. I think it was kind of like hammering away at some of his usual themes. And then he just posted something where he was like eating blueberries. I mean, that's how he described it. I didn't actually see the post, but I can picture it because I've seen him eat blueberries a lot in his Daily V episodes. So basically, it just comes on his, whatever I think he said was on Instagram, and it's just a video of him popping blueberries and doing whatever else he was doing. But the main thing about the post was that it deviated from the usual messaging and gave him a chance to just put something else out there, something else a little bit revealing, albeit informally or casually, about him, about the fact that he's kind of hooked on blueberries, right? So this has kind of a funny bent to it, but it's a true statement. It's actually a truism, and it's actually a fact that this was a good tactic for him. It was like his most liked post for whatever time frame he was measuring it against. So it outperformed all this other stuff where he was giving more structured advice and things of that nature. And so his volume, his persistence at producing lots of content allowed him to do that. To say, hey, I've put up whatever, 10, 20, 40, 50 motivational posts about business and life and whatever. Post 51 is going to be me eating blueberries. And if it doesn't work well, post 52 to 100 will be back on the other stuff. So he had that option. He had that optionality to say, let me try something different. Because it wasn't like, well, if I try this one different thing and I'm not going to post again for 2 or 3 weeks, then this post falls flat and I basically go dark for 3 weeks, right? If you're posting very infrequently and you make a misstep, well, it's catastrophic, right? Because people leave your page, they don't look at your stuff, and you don't come back for 2 or 3 weeks, right? So now you're really kind of in a hole because now you got to go even further back to the last post that anybody liked, that anybody engaged with. Forgive me, guys, got to get to the water there. So that was kind of his message. A lot of what he was saying during this talk had that feel of almost being like inverted or the opposite of what everybody expected him to say. And this really stood out to me because it touched on this volume issue, but in a way that I've never said to you guys before, and I just don't think it's come up that way on this podcast, and these 76 episodes that we've done. This is really another way to look at it where you kind of realize like you're not constraining yourself by saying, hey, I'm going to post every day or twice a day or 3 times a day or 4 times a day. You're not constraining yourself, rather you're freeing yourself to just try anything. One of the ways that this has actually clicked for me that I was already doing is one of the TikTok accounts that I run. Basically, I've just sampled a lot of stuff there. Whether it's a story, whether it's a still image, whether it's a still image plus music, whether it's a video plus music or a video with no music, just trying different permutations out of that list I just rattled off to you, and just seeing what happens. Just maintaining a consistent posting schedule, couple TikToks a day. I think kind of been on a 2-a-day schedule, if you will, or posting frequency. And by doing 2 a day or 60 a month or 720 a year, that pace allows me to try different things and not be stuck with, I always have to make a video where the person in the video is doing X, Y, and Z. And if I ever post anything other than that and it doesn't do well, then I've got a big crater inside the account. So you get away from that and you free yourself from that, and you get off the dependency on being repetitive to be safe. Okay, so I want you guys to think of it that way. If you're not producing a lot of content, if you're posting, I would say if you're posting less than at least a few times a week, if you're posting twice a week or less, maybe once a week, maybe not even once a week, you need to listen to this advice. You need to think about what this means for your business in terms of, or whatever, hobby, passion, side hustle, whatever the case might be for you. You have to really think about what can volume do for me. volume takes the chains off. Volume it unfetters, the individual who's doing the posting. So anyway, want to leave it at that, guys. Just hit the 10-minute mark. Got to rest the voice. But anyway, think about it, guys. Definitely something that especially these volume-oriented posts, love to hear your feedback on them. How are you doing it? If you're doing it, how do you do it? How do you hack into your normal daily routine and rhythm to make sure that you're capturing and posting content? So anyway, guys, reach out to us over on Facebook or LinkedIn at Pransform. You can come to the website at pransform.com. Or, of course, you can interface with us here by just following our podcast, and you can submit questions to us via those other channels, and we can answer them here for you. But super appreciate you guys listening. Very, very sorry about the slight disruption this week to the schedule. We'll definitely be back. Might be the later part of next week, but definitely be back next week with episode 77. And then the week of August 1st, we'll get into the usual rhythm. We'll do 78 and 79 that week. So anyway, guys, thanks again for listening. Really appreciate your support. Hope everybody has a great Thursday night, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.